good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're calling from. My name is Bethany Leach, and I am the Small Grant Lead Associate for the Gender and Youth Activity, or GAYA. I am a white woman with shoulder-length hair, sitting at a desk in a home office, wearing a green shirt. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar titled GAYA Small Grant Launch, Understanding GAYA's Program Improvement Award, where we will be sharing information about the GAYA Small Grant funding opportunity and answer the questions you all submitted when you registered for this event. Before we start, we'd like to inform you that this session will be recorded and that we are providing simultaneous interpretation in French, Spanish, and Arabic. I'd like to invite everyone to select their preferred language for this session. You can do so by clicking the interpretation icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and selecting your preferred language. You can choose to mute the original audio or listen to it at a lower volume. So if you all could do that now, that would be great. At any time during this webinar, if you're experiencing technical challenges, please feel free to reach out to my colleague, Emily Tierink, in the chat. Okay, to kick us off, I'm going to pass things over to the director of GAYA, Julie Kaler. All right, over to you, Julie.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, Bethany. My name is Julie. And as Bethany mentioned, I'm the director of the GAYA Award. I am a white woman with short curly brown hair and glasses, and I'm sitting in my home office and I'm wearing a leopard print turtleneck. During today's webinar, we will be sharing about the funding opportunity from the Gender and Youth Activity, which is a USAID BHA funded learning award that works to improve the quality and impact of food security activities by addressing the barriers and the challenges that implementing partners like yourself face when integrating gender and youth within their activities. GAYA is a 5-year award, and we are in our 2nd year of implementation. Our team sits across both Mercy Corps and Save the Children. And today we're talking about one of our work streams, the Small Grants Program. But we will cover more ways that you can engage with GAYA towards the end of the event. So please do stay the whole event. So during today's webinar, we're going to provide an overview of GAYA's Small Grants Program, highlight key aspects of the request for applications, the RFA, the funding opportunity we're talking about. And we're going to answer specific questions that have been submitted during registration for this RFA. While today's focus is on answering questions you all submitted during that registration process, please feel free to put additional questions that you have into the chat. So we're not going to get to those questions you put into the chat today, just FYI, but we will be able to provide answers to relevant questions in the GAYA RFA webpage. And we'll do that by December 13th. So if you still have questions at the end of this webinar, you can also submit those questions via email by December 9th. And you submit to all capitals GAYA, G-A-Y-A, _ capital S, M-A-L-L, capital G-R-A-N-T, at savethechildren.org. And that will be in the chat. So if you, again, do have questions after this webinar, please do submit those by December 9th. But during the webinar, please feel free to put additional questions in the chat, and we will respond to those by December 13th. But before we begin, as we like to do, we really like to hear from you. So we're going to share a poll. So get ready to touch your keyboard or your screen. And we want to understand a bit more about why you decided to join us today. You will see the poll pop up on your screen with the question. The question is, how did you hear about this funding opportunity? So please click the appropriate way that you heard about this funding opportunity. Did you hear it through LinkedIn? Did you get a postcard from us at an event? Did you get a direct email from us because you were at a previous webinar? Did you look at the FSN network, or was it another way? Please select your answers to the poll that pops up in your screen. If you heard about this webinar through multiple channels, please feel free to click all that apply. We like to know if you've been bombarded with information. So I'll give you guys some time to respond. Got 29 responses, 30. How did you hear about the funding opportunity? So we're trying to understand how best to get things to you. So this really helps us understand what channels they're coming through to you. 40 responses, great. So a lot of people are hearing through the FSN network, also people hearing through word of mouth. We've got a lot of others. So if you heard through another channel, feel free to pop that channel that you heard this through into the chat, because that always helps us know how to best get in touch with you and share opportunities with you. So we've got about 52 people out of 90 who are on, who've responded. So just about one more minute to respond to that question. A lot of FSN network, a lot of through others. Would love to know, for those who clicked other, what other channels you're getting this through. So at least 12 people got it through another channel that's not listed here. And thank you for already starting to put questions into the chat box. Some of the ones that you've put up there, we will be answering throughout. So that's great. All right. So we're gonna move in. Thank you so much for engaging and responding to those polls. We'll have a few other polls throughout, so please do respond when they come up. So as a part of GAYA's goal to address those barriers and challenges that implementing partners like yourself face when integrating gender and youth within their activities, GAYA went and used a human-centered design approach to understand the issues that implementing partners, again, like yourselves, thought were the biggest barriers to that integration. So first, GAYA conducted a series of key informant interviews and desk review to identify a list of topic areas that implementing partners thought funding could help address related to gender and youth integration. Once we established that initial list of topic areas, the GAYA team then circulated a survey to implementing partners, asking people to rank their priority areas or to suggest additional focus areas. So we got feedback from you all, and that was critical in determining how we wanted to focus this funding opportunity. So what we're about to have a conversation about has come directly out of what you all have identified as critical challenge areas that need additional support and that people want to dig into. So based on our different outreach, the issues implementing partners most prioritized to be the focus of this funding opportunity is this. So what you guys said was data on gender and youth is collected, but not fully utilized, analyzed, or fed back into learning and adaptation, and thus not fully acted upon. So that data was not fully acted upon. So through the final survey that we did with you all, we heard from 62 people total. And funnily enough, 62% of those respondents ranked this issue as one of their top 3 priorities. So on the slide, you can see that 19 people ranked this as their first priority, 8 people as their second priority, and 12 people as their third priority. So this RFA is an effort to give organizations the opportunity to come up with new ways of integrating the gender and youth data that they already have, or to try something that maybe they've been thinking of trying to really better integrate their data, but haven't had the resources to do so yet, right? So before we share more about this opportunity, we actually wanted to hear from you through a chat storm. So if you've joined GAYA, a GAYA webinar before, you're probably familiar with this, but if this is your first time joining a GAYA webinar, here's how the chat storm works. So in a minute, I'm going to pose a question. My colleague is going to play some music to allow everybody to think about their answers to the question. And while they're playing music, we want you to type that response into the chat. But this is the key. You don't press send until the music stops and I say send. And then once that music stops and I say send, we want everybody to press their send buttons and it storms the chat with all your answers. So while the music's playing, type in your answers to the question I'm about to give you. And then as soon as the music stops and I say send, press send and we'll storm the chat. So again, we want to hear from you. And this is the question. We'd love to know, based on your experience, what is a risk of not incorporating gender and youth data into your programs, right? Collecting, disaggregating, but not incorporating that back in. What is the risk of not incorporating gender and youth data into your programs? Could be multiple risks, could be one. I'm going to turn on the music, start typing into the chat your response, and as soon as the music stops, we'll storm the chat. All right, let's storm the chat with all your responses. I was already seeing some come through. Super relevant responses. Women and youth are excluded from organizations' actions if we don't do this. We have lack of inclusive development. We will have problems planning. GBV could increase because the program may not appropriately plan to achieve objectives. We could lose opportunities to address context-specific vulnerabilities. We might not get people the help that they need. There's no effective change in behavior if we're not doing this. We can't make corrective decisions about our targets if we're not doing this. We don't fully understand the needs if we're not doing this. Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, storm the chat. Wow, lots of responses. Absolutely. Very true. If we don't take into consideration the main responsibilities of the family, then we're not going to understand the full picture. We won't be able to make proper decisions, right? There's a lot of leaders on this call who won't be able to make the decisions they need to in the ways they need to. So thank you so much for providing such great context for why this issue that GAYA is funding through small grants is so critical to address. We're very grateful to make the focus of our RFA based on all the responses that you've listed here. So let's get into more of the details about this RFA. So this funding opportunity is open to current and former implementing partners of development, emergency, food security, resilience, and emergency response activities. My colleague Katie is dropping in the link to our small grants page now, which has all our information. And at the bottom of it, you'll find a button to download the RFA, right? So that is access to the RFA right there. So specifically, GAYA is seeking concept notes for this funding opportunity for ideas that support the integration of data into gender and youth activities. This could be developing or trying a new data collection method. It could be designing or piloting new ways of sharing data, or innovations or research on how to improve the use of gender and youth data or gender and age data. We encourage the submission of ideas on how data can be better used to improve activities for different gender groups and for different age groups, specifically young people. So Save the Children is the prime implementer of the GAYA Associate Award. And all program improvement awards under this specific funding opportunity will be awarded through Save the Children, to make that clear. So again, to find out more about the RFA and anything we talk about today, visit our small grants webpage at the link in the chat that my colleague Katie has just put in there. So that's a bit of an overview, but we're going to get deeper into what it means and answer some of the questions that you've already submitted. So I want to introduce you to our GAYA Small Grants team. So our Small Grants team consists of two amazing individuals. So we've got Beatrice Scheuerman, and she's GAYA's advisor for small grants. And we've got Bethany Leach, and she is the lead associate for small grants. So together, Beatrice and Bethany will lead the GAYA Small Grants program and will manage each of the grants that are awarded. So welcome to Beatrice and Bethany. They're going to come on now. And I'm actually going to pass things over to Beatrice and Bethany to walk us through the RFA so that we have an understanding of who's eligible and then how to apply. And then after, we'll come back and we'll do a bit of a panel discussion with some of your questions that you've submitted. So over to Beatrice and Bethany.
Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us today. My name is Beatrice, and as Julie mentioned, I'm GAYA's Small Grants Advisor. I'm a woman with light brown hair. I have beige headphones on, and I'm wearing a red, beige, and blue plaid shirt. I'm going to go through a quick overview of the RFA and highlight key aspects and important dates to be aware of in case you are considering applying. As Julie mentioned at the beginning of today's call, we're focusing today's session on answering questions that were submitted via registration. However, if you have additional questions, please put them in the chat and we'll post responses to relevant questions on the GAYA Small Grant website by December 13th. Now for something that is on everybody's mind: who is eligible to apply? As Julie mentioned, the focus of the RFA is on ideas that can help both emergency and development projects better integrate data on gender and youth into their activities. But to get more into the specifics, we accept applications from US or non-US non-governmental organizations, NGOs, for-profit organizations, research institutions, or higher education institutions. Applicants can be from anywhere across the globe, but proposed activities must be implemented in countries where USAID, the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance, works or has funded activities in the past 3 years, meaning 2020, 2021, or 2022. Unique entity identifier and the system award for award management. Those are two US government systems. That registration will be required by the time the award is signed. To learn more about the unique entity identifier, please follow the link that my colleague Katie is adding to the chat or follow the URL on the slide. And finally, additionally, the applicant must be legally recognized in the country of implementation. The following are not eligible to apply for grants under this RFA. Members of the GAYA Consortium cannot apply. This means Save the Children and Mercy Corps, including other country and fundraising offices beyond the US, for instance, Save the Children UK or Mercy Corps Uganda. And this also means that Save the Children and Mercy Corps cannot be subawardees to another organization. Individuals and sole proprietorships, government entities, including ministries, multilateral organizations or firms operating as commercial companies, or other organizations that are wholly or partially owned by foreign governments or agencies. If any of these apply to you, unfortunately, you will not be able to apply for this funding opportunity. However, we hope you can collaborate with GAYA in another way. While we encourage everyone who fits our eligibility requirements to apply, there are a few groups we want to specifically call out to apply for this opportunity. Applications from organizations led by or serving all persons and identities, regardless of age, gender, or disability. Applications from local or regional organizations led by youth up to the age of 29 years are encouraged. Applications from local or regional organizations led by or focused on women are encouraged. And finally, applications from local and regional organizations are highly encouraged to apply. For those of you who are interested in applying, you're probably wondering what the timeline for the process looks like. This is going to be a two-stage process for this opportunity. First, we will accept concept notes through early January 2023. The portal will open on January 3rd and the submission window will end at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on January 16th. Concept notes will be reviewed by a joint selection committee comprised of members of the GAYA team as well as BHA. The concept note submissions include a short description of the proposed project, a brief budget overview, just a high-level summary, and an eligibility checklist, excuse me, to ensure that your organization meets GAYA's criteria to apply. A select number of applicants will be invited to a question and answer session in February or March of next year with the GAYA team and staff from BHA as an opportunity for us to learn more about the proposed project. From there, GAYA will send recommendations to the applicants to incorporate into their full application. We're anticipating that full applications will be due on or around April 17th. Please check the GAYA page on the FSN network for updates to that timeline. The selection committee will review received applications and may send another request for additional information at that time. It is our hope and our plan that the review committee will make decisions by June of 2023 and that we'll have received donor approval for the grants by the end of July. Once all the awards are signed, there will be a total of 4 awards. GAYA will offer up to 5 non-selected applicants the opportunity for a feedback call. We think that feedback is important to helping future improvements, so we'd like to be as transparent as possible about why an application did not advance in this process. We'd like to help you strengthen applications for future opportunities if you so desire. Bethany, over to you for more information on the application process.
Great. Thanks, Beatrice, for walking us through that timeline. That's really helpful to see. As Beatrice mentioned, applications will be evaluated through a 2-stage process. First, a concept note, and then a full application submission. To be considered for a grant, all applicants must submit a concept note before the deadline on January 16th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. To reiterate, concept notes will be competitively reviewed and evaluated by a review committee. Only selected concept notes and those who pass a pre-award assessment will be invited to submit a full application. Concept notes must be submitted in accordance with the general content of the concept template, which you can find in attachment 1 of the RFA. And a reminder, the RFA is located on the website, and the chat for that was shared earlier. Concept notes should be no more than 5 pages long. GAYA will accept concept note submissions in the following languages: French, English, Spanish, Arabic, Portuguese, Russian, Ukrainian, Dari, and Bengali. Because we will need to translate each non-English concept note and our budget is limited, we can only unfortunately accept 20 concept notes in languages other than English. We are accepting non-English concept notes as we want ideas to be expressed thoroughly through the language most comfortable for the applicant. But please know, however, that contractual documentation, all reporting and deliverables submitted for these awards will need to be in English without translation provided by GAYA. So an understanding of English is still essential for this award. Once 20 non-English submissions are received, the GAYA grant webpage will be updated to indicate that only English submissions can be submitted from that point until the deadline. All submissions will be reviewed together, regardless of the date of submission, as long as they are submitted between January 3rd and January 16th by 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We encourage everyone to submit their concept notes earlier rather than later, but especially for applicants who are considering submitting in a language other than English, as we can, again, only accept 20 concept notes in languages other than English. The grants awarded out of this RFA will be $240,000 US each and cover a period of 24 months. The grants will be awarded as fixed amount awards using a fixed amount award mechanism. This means that the payments will be milestone based rather than based on regular submitted financial reports. The goal of this is to ease the burden of reporting for grantees. We hope that this was a helpful overview of the RFA and who can apply and how you apply and the timeline that you need to be aware of. So at this point, I'm going to pass it now back to Julie.
Hi, thank you so much for that overview, Bethany and Beatrice. It was very helpful and answered a lot of the questions we received from people upon registration for this event. So as a reminder, when you registered for the event on Eventbrite, you were asked to submit questions about this funding opportunity. So during the call today, we're going to cover the most frequently submitted questions that were submitted during that registration process. But we invite you to please put additional questions in the chat, and we will make sure those are responded to by December, so mid-December. Before we start, I also wanted to remind everybody that this session is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on the GAYA Small Grants page, which we will continue to link in the chat for your reference. If you have a question that's not answered during the session, again, please feel free to submit them by chat or via the email. And that email is uppercase GAYA _ uppercase S, lowercase MALL, uppercase GRANT @savethechildren.org. And again, that is in the chat. So after the call, if you have questions, please do submit them by December 9th to that email. And we will make sure responses are out by mid-December, specifically December 13th. So you will get all responses answered. So now we're going to do a little bit of an interview process, a little bit more engaging and interactive since we're talking at you today. And I'm going to interview Beatrice and Bethany to answer some of those burning questions from the registration process. So in addition to their responses, you're going to see the information presented on the slides. So what they're saying will be on the slides. They're going to be slightly text heavy, but we're just trying to make sure we have both things happening at the same time. So let's get started. Interview time. Okay, Bethany, first question goes to you. This one goes back to eligibility because we've had a ton of questions about this and it's really important. Can an organization that has not received or implemented USAID BHA funding in the last 3 years, so 2020, 2021, and 2022, be considered eligible to apply for this opportunity? Over to you, Bethany.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. Yeah, unfortunately, because of the nature of our funding, we're not able to make an exception to this. So organizations must have successfully received and managed USAID Bureau of Humanitarian Assistance funding within the past 3 calendar years. That's again, 2020, 2021, 2022. This does include receiving funds as either the prime awardee or as any level of sub-awardee. So wanted to clarify that.
Thank you for that clarification, Bethany. And sticking with this question of eligibility, I'm going to turn it over to Beatrice. So Beatrice, could you let us know which countries are eligible to apply?
Yes, the RFA is open to all countries that have received the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance funding in the last 3 years, 2020, 2021, and 22. Some more information about which countries have received this funding can be found on the USAID website, which is going to be linked in the chat right now. It links to a web page, and you can search in a scroll down menu for your country and see there the different types of USAID and Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance funding that your country may have received in the last few years.
Okay, great. Got it. So it's both has to be an organization that received funding from BHA in the last 3 years in some capacity. It could be sub-awardee, and implemented in a country that has received BHA funding in the last few years, right? So it's those two things. So sticking with eligibility, I'll go back to Bethany. Can more than one person from the same institution, but different departments, apply for the grant? Or can an NGO submit more than one application from different geographic codes? Bethany?
Yeah, good question. Unfortunately, no. This was a decision that we learned out of previous small grant programs. So there is a maximum of one application per organization. If there are multiple interests, though, from one institution or one organization, we encourage departments to work together to put together the strongest idea to apply.
Okay, understood. So this requires coordinating across the organization. Got you. Speaking of organizations, can a newly registered or youth-led organization apply for this small grant?
Yes, a newly registered organization can apply, and in fact, we encourage it, but we need to make sure that the organization meets all other eligibility criteria, including the previous BHA funding, the system for award management, and the unique entity identifier number requirements. Of course, the organization also needs to be sure they're legally registered in their country as well.
So my understanding is that youth-led organizations are encouraged to apply and will be given preference, and that a youth-led organization is defined as one led or managed by a young person 29 years of age or younger, and that aligns with BHA USA definitions of youth. All non-youth-led organizations are also eligible to apply. So if you are a non-youth-led organization, you're also eligible if you're led by somebody who is over the age of 29. Okay, so given that we're the gender and youth activity, that makes a lot of sense to me. So speaking of, this RFA is specifically focused on the improvement of youth and gender data collection for development and emergency, food security, resilience, and emergency response activities. Can an organization design a project proposal that is related to broader youth and gender issues in development and emergency food security activities? Bethany?
Yeah, this is a good question. The GAYA program as a whole is working to support broader youth and gender issues in development and emergency food security activities. So we encourage everyone to get involved with GAYA. However, for this funding opportunity, concept notes with project ideas that support the integration of data into youth and/or gender activities will be given preference.
Okay, but what about existing programs? Is the RFA available for ongoing gender and youth activities, or do organizations need to create a standalone activity for these funds? Beatrice?
There doesn't need to be a newly created standalone activity. The RFA can support ongoing activities as long as the idea proposed is not already planned or required under your existing award. So it can't be a required study or research or monitoring and evaluation activity. The idea proposed should be in addition to any already required activities.
Okay, great to hear that people can get creative with their ongoing activities. But speaking of getting creative, can organizations include an aspect of technology into their idea? Bethany?
Yeah, another great question. And awesome that, people are thinking about integrating technology in today's world. So yes, we encourage applicants who want to explore the use of technology in data around gender and youth. So go ahead, propose an idea. We'd love to see it. However, from our past experience with small grants, we have seen that experimenting with technology can get very expensive. So we do advise applicants to be budget conscious when they are considering integrating technology into their ideas.
So that makes great sense. And speaking of budget, is there a threshold or limit for staffing or HR costs in this total budget? Beatrice?
No, there's no limit per se. GAYA will consider the budget as a whole as we review it, and then we'll determine whether the intended deliverables match the proposed budget.
Okay, but what about for external hires? Would the grant cover the cost of an external consultant hired to conduct an assessment to identify areas of improvement as part of the proposal? Bethany?
Yeah, absolutely. Consultants and subawards are allowable under this award.
Wonderful. That's great to know. Turning back to the application itself, will the RFA be made available in other languages, given that the applicants can submit their applications in other languages? Beatrice?
Unfortunately, there aren't plans at this time to translate the RFA into other languages. There are some good online translators available in case you need some extra assistance. Google Translate, DeepL.com are two that come to mind and that folks may find useful.
Oh yes, I do love using DeepL to try and pretend that I know French. But turning back to those non-eligible organizations, for those of us at non-eligible organizations, for example, Mercy Corps and Save the Children are non-eligible organizations. How can we support our partners who we're implementing with their applications? Bethany, can you give us some ideas for that?
Yeah, absolutely. First to reiterate and to affirm that Mercy Corps and Save the Children offices, whether headquarter offices or country offices, are not eligible to apply since we are administering the GAYA program. But that being said, we greatly encourage those offices to support partners and local actors to apply. So you're welcome to support in any way that feels right. That may mean helping the partner navigate the process to obtain a unique entity identifier with the US government, or offering to proofread their application. But any way you do it, we love that you're looking to support.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of teams out there are wanting to support smaller organizations that they work with on these applications. So we know how tricky it can be to navigate the rules and regulations of some of these granting processes. So speaking of, for local partners in particular, what are the key USAID rules and regulations that they'll need to be aware of and prepared to comply with in order to receive this small grant or to apply? Beatrice, do you want to take this one?
Sure. This is a really important question for all applicants. The main set of regulations governing the grants is actually linked at the very bottom of the RFA on our webpage, and it's the USAID standard provisions for fixed amount awards. We encourage everyone considering applying to read through these regulations and make sure that your organization is able to comply.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Beatrice and Bethany. That is all the questions we had previous to this webinar. So all the questions that came out of registration. It was really nice to kind of dig in a bit more about the RFA and how to apply. I hope we've answered some of the questions that you all came here with and some of the ones that you feel like are important. As a reminder, if you still have questions for the GAYA team, you can put them in the chat or reach out to GAYA directly at all uppercase GAYA _ uppercase S lowercase MALL uppercase G lowercase RANT at savethechildren.org. It is in the chat. It is on the slide. So we'll review the questions. So submit those questions by the 9th of December. And then we'll review those questions and put the relevant responses on Gaia's website by December 13th. So if this has brought up more questions for you or not fully answered your questions, please put your question in the chat and or submit through the Gaia email. So I'm going to turn this back to Bethany to go over some tips for success when applying and to close us out of this webinar. So Bethany, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie, for leading us through that question and answer session. Beatrice and I greatly appreciate how many people submitted questions for today's webinar. So thank you for helping us make this as relevant as possible for all of you. Based on previous experience with small grants, I'd like to share a few tips that I hope will be helpful. Gaia has a rigorous review process, and if you apply, you will be competing against other organizations. So it's important that you keep these things in mind as you're applying. So the first tip, it is important to demonstrate and understand USAID regulations, as well as BHA strategies, models, and activity portfolio. Understanding these may be useful to ensure that you're using terms that align with USAID and BHA goals, which will make your application stronger. If your organization, if your organization needs a refresher on working with USAID, you can visit the USAID New Partnerships Initiative webpage to learn more, which my colleague will be linking in the chat just now. This webpage includes a link to a training video about working with USAID, as well as other resources that may be useful. Okay, another thing to keep in mind is that we do require that grants be implemented in countries where BHA has funded programs in the last 3 years. This is really a minimum standard. If you're looking to strengthen your application, you can target countries where BHA currently operates and has a strong portfolio. This will ensure that applicability of your learnings from your grant to the broader food security community. And it can absolutely, you can absolutely apply for funding in countries where BHA has done one small grant in the last 3 years, but it may not be as strong as other applications who are applying to more focused areas. All right, my last tip for success is that applicants should ensure that the ideas they are exploring and coming up with really do benefit the wider food security and nutrition community. The knowledge gained from an organization's small grant should not just benefit their organization or their target participants in the community. The knowledge should be beneficial to the global food security community and to help everyone integrate gender and youth data into their activities. So those are just 3 tips to keep in mind when you're developing your concept note. Okay, we are almost at the end of our session. But before we end, we want to ask you a few more questions. So we're going to ask you 3 questions one by one in the form of polls, as we did in the beginning of the session. So we'd greatly appreciate it if you could stay on and respond to these polls, as they help us make our webinars and communications stronger for all of you. Okay, so first we want to ask you, after attending this webinar, do you intend to submit a concept note for this opportunity? So you'll see on the screen, please select one answer. You can say A, yes in English, B, yes in a language other than English, C, maybe, D, no, or E, other. So you'll see the poll pop up on your screen now. I see people are responding already. So please select your answer. All right, we're getting a lot of great responses. Excellent. All right, we'll give just a few seconds for people to select, it looks like. All right. Thank you for submitting your answers to that question. We're really excited to see your concept notes. So I'm really excited that a lot of people have indicated that they are going to apply. And for those of you who aren't planning to apply, we really look forward to connecting with you in other ways. Okay, so the next question asks, how difficult or easy was it for you or your colleagues to participate in this event? This can be based on timing, technology, language, etc. So you'll see on your screen the answers that you can select from. You can pick A, very difficult, B, somewhat difficult, C, NA, not available or not applicable, D, somewhat easy, E, very easy. So you'll see this poll pop up on your screen. So you can go ahead and select your answer.
And for those of you who are choosing difficult or somewhat difficult, we are very happy to receive in the chat and or by Gaia email what made it difficult for you, so that we can start adjusting to those things in the future.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Thank you for your response to that. As Julie said, this information will help us better facilitate our events in the future. So thank you for answering that. Okay, our last question asks, what about this event should have been changed to make it easier to participate? You'll see the answers on your screen that you can choose from. So you can pick A, the date, B, day of the week, A, time of the webinar, D, the technology, the Zoom platform, E, language, F, lack of accommodation for difficult abilities, such as hearing or sight challenged, G, not applicable, or H, other. So again, you will see this question pop up on your screen. So please go ahead and select your answer. All right, seeing lots of responses come in. Thank you all for sticking around and answering our poll. All right, excellent. Thank you all for your responses. Again, this information will help us better facilitate our events in the future and make sure that they're easy to participate in. Okay. So if you are not considering on submitting a concept note, we still encourage you to stay involved in Gaia. And we want to let you know that there are other ways that you can be involved. So here are some of the opportunities that you have. For those of you who are already subscribed to the FSN newsletter, you can stay tuned to the FSN updates for news about Gaia. We have an upcoming Resilience, Gender, and Youth Fellowship pilot, so stay tuned for news on that. My colleague is adding a link in the chat right now for you to be able to access the FSN network. Gaia will also be convening virtual conversations with you, the implementing partner community. So this will happen in the new year. So stay tuned for announcements of those as well. And finally, if you want to get in touch directly about an idea to work together outside of this opportunity for small grants, you can visit the Gaia website and contact us directly. So there'll be a button that says contact us and you can get in touch. Once again, my colleague Katie will add this link to the website in the chat, so you can access it there. So just one last reminder before we leave, the recording of this webinar and the answers to all of your questions submitted will be posted to Gaia's small grant page on December 13th. So please make sure to check the website by then. So if you have lingering questions, hopefully we'll have them answered. So I just want to thank you all for joining us here today. It was wonderful to spend time with you and to be able to share information about this funding opportunity. We really look forward to reviewing your concept notes. So thanks everyone, and have a great day or an evening. Have a good evening. Goodbye.